So thank you all for attending our today's information session, meant to highlight Advanced New Mexico, especially for people who are connected or serving entrepreneurs, so that you can inform folks, entrepreneurs and organizations like nonprofits, what capital exists for them. And if you're a borrower yourself, you can learn more information about our Advanced New Mexico product and hopefully be able to get some information on, if you should, take advantage of it. So the whole point of Advanced New Mexico is about flowing capital into small businesses and nonprofits doing good in the New Mexico community. All right, so Wilda, you can go next slide, please. So there's a few housekeeping things as we get started. If for some reason your audio isn't working, you could always dial in on your phone. We're going to keep you muted just to keep quality the best that we can. If you have a question, you could use the chat box to type a question, or you can use the raise your hand function. And then after we get through the program, we'll address all questions. And we love questions, by the way. As you've probably got to notice, we are recording this session, meant to be distributed at a later point in time for those who couldn't make it for one reason or another, and to you all, so you can kind of revisit and points of the discussion if you want. And don't worry, if you need to bail and take care of some business and you can't say the whole time, totally okay. It'll be recorded. You'll get the information. We're not going away. We're going to be here doing this for a long time. So if you have another commitment, that's okay. We won't take any offense to it. All right. So mission-driven finance. Before we get into the Advanced New Mexico product, I want to talk a little bit about mission-driven finance. So we're a mission-based lender, started out of San Diego, California. And really, I think the secret sauce to mission-driven finance is, we use finance as a tool for change, and we've been doing that, I said it on the picture, since 2016. I think the secret sauce to us is we find sources of capital that want to make an impact, and then we marry that with organizations, whether nonprofit or for-profit, that need capital that also want to create an impact in their community, bring those sources together so we could flow capital from sources that want to create an impact into places that need to create an impact. So, we're a change agent using capital as that tool or catalyst. So, on the call, the mission-driven team, we're distributed across a lot of different time zones across the nation in Hawaii. I think we're a team of almost 50 now, but for our Advanced New Mexico product, we have on this call four of our team members, but three of them are on the screen. Myself, I'm Marquise Jackson. I'm the Senior Director of Business Development and Partnerships. My role at Mission Driven is to, build partners in the community, create champions who we can work with to identify organizations that need capital, and then also do outreach to potential borrowers to educate them on kind of our offerings and what we're doing, and just to help build that capital landscape in New Mexico. We also have Bernina Gray on the line. She's a contractor for us. She's local. I'm in San Diego. Bernina's there in Albuquerque. So she'll be our eyes and ears on the ground, looking out and speaking with people and making sure we have a local presence, which is important to, building connections. And we're also I'm lucky enough to have Lauren Groton, our co-founder, and CCO, or Chief Community Officer. So this Mission Driven was birthed out of Lauren's mind, and she's believes in what she does and always is here to support us. And I know she's done a lot of work in New Mexico. So I'll give Bernina a couple minutes, if you like, to just say hi to the group before I go ahead.
Thank you, Marquise. Yatea. I'm Bernina Gray, the business development contractor for the Advanced New Mexico. We're just happy to be here with you all, and I look forward to connecting in the future. And as an entrepreneur myself, I'm very passionate about supporting local businesses with the growth capital they need. Nice to meet you all.
All right. And Lauren said hello in the chat. So thank you, Bernina. So we can proceed to the next slide, Wilda. And so the vision for us at Mission Driven Finance, as we open our fund here and start to look for deals, is that New Mexico businesses owned by people from underserved communities create community impact, get the capital that they need to grow. So we're here to really, create that change that I talked about and create that impact. So if we do this correctly, when we do this correctly, let's use some positive language. Local businesses will get what they need um, to create, impact in their community, and that's all we're here for, more than anything. All right, so you can go to the next slide as well. So, of course, I'm a data nerd, but I'll kind of go over this because there's a lot of words on the page and some graphs. But a couple of things I wanted to point out as we kind of frame up why we're here and what we're doing. There's a study done by Next Street on behalf of the New Mexico Finance Authority, and they looked into entrepreneurship and loans and the landscape in New Mexico. And here's a couple things that popped out that I wanted to share today to help frame up our fund and the reason that we're here. In that, if you look at entrepreneurship in New Mexico in terms of the new business started per 100,000 residents, compared on and this data is from 2022. If you look at data at that point, if you compare New Mexico new businesses being started to a national average, of course it was lower than the national average, smaller population, but you look at the years from 2019 to 2022, the 3-year growth of new business starts, and Jonathan is probably seeing this, in that more businesses are being started in New Mexico uh, than nationally, right? As a percentage basis. So that means we have a lot of new businesses who are going to need capital, being birthed out of New Mexico. We want to kind of fill that need. Looking into more of the Next Street data, looking at the regions where capital is coming from. So we know a lot of folks are concentrated between Albuquerque and Santa Fe, but we're starting to see, business activity in kind of the southern regions of New Mexico. And one thing about us is we want to get outside as much as we can. New Mexico, Albuquerque, and Santa Fe. We want to find businesses from all over. And we are also noticing that looking at the makeup of businesses in New Mexico, they're slightly more Main Street, meaning you got retail, food services, construction, art, a lot of variety in the types of businesses that are coming from New Mexico. Next slide. So this is my favorite slide. From a data perspective, I'll have probably many favorite slides as I present. Next Street also gathered some data on the amount of capital that banks are lending to the community. So they did some research and looked from years 2007 to 2021. And so the thing that jumps out at me is if you look at bank loans in 2007, right, the number of bank loans were just over 73,000. You go all the way to 2021, it's only 33,000. That means banks are giving half as many loans as they were in 2007. And same thing with the amount, where they were giving about $1.7 billion in loans to $1.2 billion in New Mexico. So banks are doing less loans and at fewer amounts, right? And if you look at kind of the distribution of those loans over amounts less than 100,000 and greater than 250,000 across all categories, loans by loan size has been shrinking. So not only is banks, giving less loans with less amounts, the loans by loan size. So if you're a business that needs less than $100,000, the amount of capital available to you has went down. If you're a business who's getting capital at more than $250,000, the amount of capital available to you has went down. So, credit has tightened in New Mexico. Hence, why Mission Driven Finance is partnering to come here and open the loan fund. So you can go next slide, please. So we have this, I just explained to you kind of this, or a piece of the missing middle. So I'll say it again in a slightly different way. So as you look at the amount of capital available to small businesses and organizations, and this is true in New Mexico too, it's really true all around the nation. For companies that need, up to $150,000, there are sources of capital available. You got CDFIs, angel investors, online and lenders. If you're an established business that's been around for 3 years and you have revenues and a good credit score and things like that, you can go to a bank, you can get an SBA loan, maybe you get some VC funding, but really those deal sizes are 1.5 million and above. As we look, are seen on the slide before, if you're a small business or a nonprofit and you need somewhere from $100,000 to 1.5 million, there's kind of a capital desert out there for you. And that's the reason why we're here. We call that missing chunk or that desert the missing middle. So we're here to provide investments or loans in that piece of the capital landscape that's missing. And that's where mission driven fits right in at. So if you ever hear me refer to a missing middle category, that's what I mean, that category from 100,000 to 1.5 million where many lenders aren't playing. You can go next slide, please. So, with all that being said, you kind of get, the history that there's a lot of businesses coming, where the businesses are coming from. The banks are doing less in New Mexico. So why are we here? Why is mission driven? And what do we have to offer? So you kind of understand a little bit about who we are. So the loan that we have is called Advanced New Mexico, and it's meant for working capital, but we also have some many different resources. The loan terms is $100,000 to 1.5 million available, so we can do loans in that category. We do offer terms of 3 to 30 months, so typically 2.5 year money, and our interest rate is up to 11.5%. And so something really unique about mission driven is we don't require personal credit scores or personal guarantees. We believe that credit scores are archaic, and they're meant to keep certain people out of the access to capital landscape. So we like to look at deals in a different way, and to really underwrite to revenues or known entities or known factors for your business instead of saying, hey, let's give you a loan based off your credit score. And we also tailor our loans to each business, right? Whether it's a revenue-based financing where maybe the business has some contracts and they're having a hard time getting paid on those. Instead of going to a factoring company that's going to charge you more, come do a deal with us. We also offer Islamic financing. Not sure how much this will be used in New Mexico, but in certain in the Islamic faith, there's no ability to take interest, right, or pay interest. So we will structure loans to kind of fit many different scenarios. So when we say we're really inclusive, we are inclusive and we're flexible about how we deploy capital to small businesses. Next slide. So one of the questions I'm certain one of y'all might ask is, what are some of the uses of capital that businesses, can use the mission-driven loan for? So I kind of went there a little bit, but bridge funding while you're awaiting payments or reimbursements for contracts or grant. This is a use of funds that we love, right? Because it's a known factor that we can underwrite to. And it also allows us to look at companies in many different stages of their life. If you're a very, very brand new business, but you've won a corporate or a government contract and you're waiting for a payment, if you go to a banking institution, you may not have the history there. That's something we'll do because we can underwrite to that grant or that contract. If you want to purchase equipment, if you want to upgrade your facility, if you want to make investments in your supply chain and buy inventory or supplies, if you need to expand and hire new employees or manage your payroll, or you just need general working capital, we'll do deals where we refinance high interest debt or what we call friendly factoring. And I kind of talked about it in the bridge, but it's a little different. If you need financing if you need money to finance your accounts receivable, we'll do that too. But we'll do it, at our interest rate, and then we'll build a custom term that works for you as a borrower, or for the borrowers that you may refer to us. Next slide. So, as mission driven is looking, to loan money out, we're really thinking about impact. When I said we're an impact investor, we have some impact criteria that we use to apply to every deal. So the magic of mission driven finance is our loans are really aimed at folks, companies that are led by folks who come from an underserved or overlooked community, right? And that can meet many, many definitions. And so what we really look for is, what's that barrier to access to capital story, right? I'm just going to use a couple of examples here, not saying this is the depth of everything we'll use to make this determination, but, are you a veteran-owned business? Are you coming from a really, rural area? Are you an LMI person? So many different ways that you have a barrier, to access capital. And so the companies that we want to fund will be owned by people from these often overlooked or underserved communities, or the senior leadership of those organizations. So even if it's not owned, as long as the senior leaders, executives are from some of those communities and are going to benefit, that we'll want to see that in a loan. We also want to make sure that the workforce of these companies, have a share of people from those often overlooked or underserved communities, and that organization is being really intentional about giving benefits to that workforce or creating quality jobs. So, looking for, opportunities for employees, whether that's, specialized benefits or how much, the organization pays employees. And I've said this a couple times, but looking at the community impact that this organization, creates, whether they disproportionately benefit these overlooked and underserved communities, or they're produced in those communities. So as we look at deals, we're really looking for two of these impact criteria to be true. So, owned by someone from an often overlooked or underserved community, your workforce is made up of folks from that community, and you have some impact to folks in, that often overlooked and underserved community. So that's kind of what mission driven is looking for, as we loan to companies. Next slide. So here's another way to look at it. There's I think a couple of questions to ask. So if you just take workforce as an example, and you ask the question, or we ask the question, are your employees from underserved communities and in good jobs, right? The leadership piece, I kind of said a little bit more. Does the leadership or ownership include people from underserved communities, or do the products or services benefit? So at every level of mission-driven finance, we'll be assessing and asking these questions. And we do it in an open and responsible way, where we really let the borrowers tell us their story and who they are and who their products serve and what their workforce looks like. So as we do this, we get to report back to our investors like, hey, these are the companies that we're lending to, and here's the impact that they're creating. You can go next slide. Well done. So if you're referring potential borrowers over to us, I think keeping that impact criteria is important. This slide is more focused on a borrower, but I still think it's great for you to ask as a potential champion of deals. Make sure the borrower understands that they've asked themselves, is this financing right for their organization? It's not a grant. We would love to give money away if we were, trillionaires, but we're not. And it's not forgivable. So it is a loan. And understanding what they need the loan for, and then how will they repay it. So if you refer someone over, they can work with me, and I'll help you to help them get these questions answered right up front before we ever go to the application phase. If you're a borrower yourself, you can talk to me or Bernina or someone else from the team, and we'll work through this with you to make sure that our advanced New Mexico product is a good fit for you. So just a little bit more on the journey that borrowers go through. So if you refer someone over to Mission Driven Finance, or if you're a borrower yourself, what's going to happen is every person that comes from New Mexico into the Mission Driven Finance process is going to meet someone like me or Bernina who really wants to take care of them. I like to inform people of what they're getting to and talk a lot about the process that we're going to go through and inform them of the materials that they're going to need to submit a loan application. After that has been done, we'll get them into completing their loan application. After they do that, they'll go into our underwriting process where they're assigned an analyst. That process right now is taking more like 7 to 9 weeks, where the analyst really dives deep into their financials to get ultimately to an approval decision. And then once an approval is given, we'll close in about 3 weeks after that. So me or Bernina will be with them the whole way. So if you're, an organization that serves entrepreneurs and you refer somebody, just know me or Bernina's face is going to be with them the entire time, answering their questions, making sure they're informed, and getting the information that they need to make a decision. Or if they're in another piece of our team, all of our team members think and approach things the same way. We'll be transparent. We'll be providing great customer service and making sure that that organization, makes their way to a decision point and does so in the most efficient way. So what I'm saying is we got their back and we got your back for making a referral to us. Next slide. So there is more kind of to this, and you can kind of hit the button again, Wilda, for it to fill all the way out. So I always share this because as a champion, I think it's important for you to know kind of what happens. So after we've taken them through the process, we've collected applications, we made a lending decision, we funded the loan. This screen basically says our relationship isn't over with that borrower. You know, they're one of our portfolio companies from there. We're going to service the loan ourselves. So we're going to collect payment. We're going to follow up with them and do an annual survey and a check-in. When they graduate and pay off the loan, we're going to call them. So just because we've given them financing doesn't mean we go away. We still keep track of all of our borrowers and what they're up to. And we also ask how their experience was so that we can improve different pieces of our process. So I wanted you to know that again, in the spirit of customer service and transparency for our process, we're going to be with them all the way until they graduate. And hopefully after they graduate, they come through and if they need more capital, come to talk to us again. Next slide. So this is just a summary of things that we like to use to kind of explain mission driven in a sports analogy. So if you, the champion, have a borrower that you refer over to us, or if you are a borrower yourselves, just know you're going to start on home plate with me or Bernina, and we're going to be your champion, right? And as you swing the bat, and you hit a ball and you get to go around our baseball diamond. If hopefully everybody's a baseball fan, you're going to come in contact with folks who will help you get on base at every point of the mission driven finance process. Right. So initially you're going to get someone from Borrow Services who takes that application. Then they'll hand you off to an underwriting analyst, and then we'll close you out. But just know your champion, who is either me or Benina, will be running those bases with you. And so here's where I get to say a tagline. Thanks, Peter. Where we get to say, hey, run the bases with us. We got your back. So I think that's actually the last slide. And I believe. And so thank you. We are accepting applications. So if you, for Shani, Jonathan, whoever else didn't make the call, send people my way. They can connect with us in two different ways. They can go directly to our website at missiondrivenfinance.com/loans, look at our Advanced New Mexico, and schedule a call with the team, and we'll meet with them and help them get into an application. Or if they just have general questions, they can reach out at borrow@missiondrivenfinance.com. That email also comes to me and other team members. We'll answer their questions, all that they have, in hopes of getting them to, be able to apply or to a capital resource that makes sense for them. So I'll stop at this and see if anyone has any questions.
Well, I have a question. So what are other, do you require, so to apply for the loan, do you require, like business plans and financial projections for startups? Or what are the documents that you require for them?
So yeah, we do ask that they complete a light type of business plan. What we really collect is a business canvas, and what we're really after in that process is really understanding how their business works, right, and how they make money and who their customers are and things like that. And then yes, we would like a couple years of financial projections, and that's something that we'll talk through with the potential borrower to make sure that they're going to give us projections and give us the best case scenario they can. So we'll talk through that and work through that piece with them once they get to an analyst to get down to projections they think make sense. And if they're a startup, well, the best way to be successful at Mission Driven is for them in the startup phase. If we're saying they're a brand new business with no revenue yet, is for them to already have a signed contract of some sort, whether that be corporate or government. Outside of that, it'll be really tough to be able to underwrite to their revenues, because there's no certainty of revenues coming in. So yeah, for those early stage companies, definitely want to see a contract of some sort.